Prachana
Unmadera chesta kore palapa vachana.
Rasi divase Krishna viraha spurana.
Rasi divase Krishna viraha spurana.
Unmadera chesta kore palapa vachana.
Unmadera chesta kore palapa vachana.
Ratri divase, day and night. Krishna viraha, feelings of separation from Krishna. Spurana, awakening. Unmadera, of a madman. Chesta, activities. Kore, performs. Pralapa, talking inconsistently. Vachana, words. Translation. Day and night, Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu felt separation from Krishna, manifesting symptoms of this separation. He cried and talked very inconsistently like a madman. Text 41. As Srimati Radharani talked inconsistently when she met Uddhava, so also Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu relished, both day and night, such ecstatic talk in the mood of Srimati Radharani. Purport. In this connection, one should refer to Srimati Radharani's soliloquy after meeting Uddhava in Vrindavan. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu presented a similar picture of such ecstatic imaginary talking, full of jealousy and madness, symptomizing neglect by Krishna. Srimati Radharani, criticizing a bumblebee, talked just like a mad woman. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in the last days of his pastimes, exhibited all the symptoms of such ecstasy. In this connection, one should refer to the 4th chapter of the Adi-lila, verses 107 and 108. Om Agana Chimarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktarinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We are getting a brief appetizer of the Ancha-lila in these verses in Adi-lila. And you're being plunged into the deepest well, the deepest pool of Krishna Rasa by way of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It is very difficult, you might say practically impossible, to approach Krishna effectively in this age of Kali without going through Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sometimes it's wondered why, even in India, the land of Krishna, there's so much misunderstanding about Krishna. It's because of not approaching Krishna through Lord Chaitanya. As we discussed briefly yesterday, for those of you who were here, Lord Chaitanya is in the mundane historical record. But obviously mundane historians can't understand his so-called madness in ecstatic love. So-called madness meaning mundane historians take reports of his madness as mundane. We discussed briefly yesterday how in the annals of mundane history, Lord Chaitanya is considered to have been a great social reformer who was doing wonders in leveling the caste systems, as the mundane historians see it, being an egalitarian, as they see it. But then, as they see it, he lost the plot and went off the rails. Because how can a mundane person understand the deepest pool of Krishna rasa, love of Krishna in separation? We also spoke yesterday about how Srila Prabhupada, being such an inconceivably brilliant teacher, was able to impart a glimpse of love of Krishna in separation to George Harrison, who conveyed it in music to the extent of his realization. And here we are, by the grace of Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami and Srila Prabhupada, we're able to try to taste one drop of the unlimited ocean of love of Krishna in separation. As Caitanya Caritamrita says, just one drop from that ocean can drown the whole universe. So sometimes you may think that hearing about such extraordinary devotees, the associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, makes us feel so tiny, inconsequential, and hopeless. But you see, yes, they're eternal associates of Lord Chaitanya. They're swimming in the ocean, the unlimited ocean of love of Krishna. But if we can just get one drop from that ocean, that's enough to drown the whole universe. So you have to see everything in perspective. These accounts of the ecstatic transformations of Lord Chaitanya in the association of his intimates like Sup Damodar, Ramananda Roy, these are not meant to make us feel discouraged, like, oh, what's the use in me trying? I'll never get there. These accounts are meant to inspire us to just try our best to get one drop. And if someone can get one drop, that's enough to drown the universe. So this is the scale we're operating on. Just a drop of the unlimited mercy of Lord Chaitanya and his associates will not only transform us, but will transform the whole world. We briefly discussed yesterday about how by Mahaprabhu's leading his kirtan parties throughout Navadvip, he set off the Sankirtan movement, which would gradually cover the whole world, and Srila Prabhupada says, then gradually cover the whole universe. So we really don't know the full extent of what we're progressively marching toward. We're asked by our spiritual masters to play our little role as best we can. I was reading a letter where Srila Prabhupada was explaining, we're not motivated by success. We may see success, we may not see success, but we're motivated by a chance to give our all in all in serving Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Krishna wants to see how you're sacrificing for him. Success may be there, success may not be there. Lord Chaitanya, in speaking to the Brahmana in South India who wanted to accompany him on his travels, drop his family, Lord Chaitanya told him, not be successful and then you'll have me always. He said, no, wherever you go, whomever you meet, teach the science of Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada in this letter was explaining that it's your job, it's your service to give people the opportunity to hear about Krishna. Whether or not they become converted, that's another thing. But your job is to distribute. Now you have to understand all the aspects of what he's presenting. because you might just seize upon one aspect and say, well, all right, it doesn't matter whether they are transformed in bhakti, I just throw out the seeds. But then he says, yes, we want them to be transformed, but still, your duty is to distribute, to try as best you can to cultivate them, and the rest is up to Krishna. Success, as seen from the ordinary point of view, may be there, may not be there, but that's not your primary motivation. This may remind you of Krishna talking to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita. You can only be an instrument. Victory or defeat is not your concern. So going into this Lila of Uddhava visiting Vrindavan, we should understand that Lila is very important for understanding Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Because what Uddhava found in Vrindavan, in terms of the consciousness of Srimati Radharani, that consciousness of her in separation from Krishna, that's what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is tasting. So what Uddhava saw upon entering Vrindavan and penetrating deep into the Braj Ras, especially love of Krishna and separation, that's what Krishna wanted to experience, and he came to do it as Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Exactly what Uddhava saw in Vrindavan, in the ecstasy and separation, the madness of Srimati Radharani, that's what Lord Chaitanya is tasting and experiencing. So you'll find in Sri Caitanya Caritamrita, as Srila Prabhupada explains in his purports, that sometimes Lord Chaitanya is demonstrating the emotions of Srimati Radharani. Sometimes he takes the position of Srimati Radharani. Sometimes he manifests as Srimati Radharani. And very confidentially, Prabhupada says in one place in the whole text, sometimes he acts as a maidservant of Srimati Radharani. So this is the extraordinary glory of Sri Caitanya Caritamrita. And Uddhava visiting Vrindavan plays a key role, and that same Uddhava, according to Kavi Karnapur, is there in Gaura-lila as Paramananda Puri. One of the, if not the main, one of the main roots of the trunk of the tree that is Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. So in Gaura-lila, Uddhava is senior to Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. He's the godbrother of Mahaprabhu's guru, Ishwar Puri. And so Mahaprabhu always treats Paramananda Puri with such great respect. He once said, and you'll find that in Caitanya Caritamrita, Mahaprabhu said that I belong to Paramananda Puri. He can do what he likes with me. If he wants to sell me, if he wants to sell my body, he can do that. And whenever there was some perplexity amongst the associates of Mahaprabhu, because Mahaprabhu was sometimes showing such rigidity in following the sannyas order, refusing any comforts at all, very uncompromising in his behavior with the external world. But his associates always wanted to have him lighten up a bit in that department. You're the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What do you need to perform such severe austerities for? But Mahaprabhu was determined, I'm going to demonstrate the highest standard of renunciate behavior. So there was always this back and forth going on between Mahaprabhu and his associates. They tried to get Mahaprabhu to, you might say, take it easy a bit and not following so rigidly. And Mahaprabhu was determined, for the sake of the general population, I'm going to follow very rigidly. You see this in the case of Chota Haridas, Junior Haridas. He was banished from the association of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. But he was loved by all the Vaishnavas, all the associates of Mahaprabhu. And they were asking Mahaprabhu, what, you're disowning him or barring him from your association just for what may seem to be of the very slight indiscretion. Can you please show him some mercy? And Mahaprabhu threatened, I'll leave here. I'll go away if you keep bringing this up. So the last resort was Paramananda Puri. He's the senior from the viewpoint of Guru Varga, just of the succession. He's senior to Mahaprabhu. So he came and made a presentation to Mahaprabhu, who said, all right, if that's what you want, he can rejoin the association of our devotees, and I leave. So Paramananda Puri, what could he say? He replied, your activities are so grave, they're very difficult to understand, but there's one thing I know for sure. All your activities are meant for the upliftment of the entire world. That's something to keep in mind when we look at statements by our previous acharyas, founder acharya, that I don't understand. Why did he say this? Remember Paramananda Puri's conclusion. He was perplexed. Please, he said to Mahaprabhu, take Junior Haridas back into your association. All your associates, they don't understand why you're being so stringent upon him, so super strict upon him. But then he said, hearing Mahaprabhu's response, he said, your activities are very grave. I can't say that I understand everything, but there's one thing I know for sure. Everything you say and do is purely for the betterment of the world. So that kind of bottom line attitude has to be with us. Otherwise we can get a little bewildered, because it seems quite natural that, I like the way Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur describes our malady, our ailment. Well, just like with my senses I grasp gross sense objects, similarly I can grasp Krishna Lila, I can grasp Gaur Lila. It's all about the apprehension done by my material senses. With my eyes, nose, tongue, all my senses, I just reach out and I understand. And so it's the same with Krishna Lila. No, it's not the same. Another name for Krishna is Adokshaja. We generally take that to mean he's beyond the range of our material senses. But it also means he who pushes down on your senses. That kind of puts us in our place. We think, well, all right, I can't, with my cognitive abilities, with my sense perception, I can't understand Krishna. All right, what can be done? But then to realize, not only from your side you can't understand, but Krishna has an energy that's pushing your sense perception down. That really puts you in your place. Because ordinarily you would think, it's just me and my sense perception, and I'll just accept that after reading so much, chanting so much, I realize there's a lot going on that I don't perceive. Well, that's just the beginning of the realization. What's further down down the road, a further realization is I'm dealing with an energy that's pushing my sense perception down. I think some of you have heard me explain an experience I had which drove this point deep into my heart. This was during the Iron Curtain communist days, and I was a fugitive, and we were having a secret gathering in Warsaw, the capital city of Poland. It had to be secret because I was hot, and I don't look Slavic. And so devotees, they got very excited. They found a place where the devotees' parents were leaving for the weekend, and that means we could go use the house to hear Srimad Bhagavatam and have Kirtan. It was a great find. Everyone was so ecstatic because none of the young people had their own flats. That's practically impossible during the communist days. You always were living with your parents. So all the devotees were excited. We've got a safe house, a safe place we can meet for the whole weekend and talk about Krishna, take prasad, cook it up, and have kirtan. Wow! So I thought it was great. So midway through the weekend, we were all sitting in the living room, about 30 devotees, in a circle. And I was also part of the circle. And I was speaking on the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, happily discussing Shukadeva Goswami's presentation. And then I look out the corner of my eye and I see the door open to the flat. The other devotees didn't see that. They're all in a circle watching me talk. But I look and I see in comes this stocky lady, very heavily built, and she takes one look at the living room, and then with a fierce look on her face, she comes in. And I'm thinking, uh-oh, this is the end. They got me. I definitely don't look like I'm from the local area. It turns out the devotees, in their naive enthusiasm, didn't tell me that the owner of the flat, the boy's mother, was a police officer. They just thought, she's gone for the weekend, we don't have to tell Maharaj. If they had told me, I would have been very hesitant to go to such a place. You never know when she's going to come back. They didn't tell me. So in she walks, and you would think she would just burst into the circle and just go bananas. What's going on? What's going on? No, she's a trained police officer. She just calmly went to one end of the circle and stood in front of that devotee, this far away, memorized the face, went to the next one, and the next one, and the next one, each time just memorizing the face, moving on to the next one. And she's coming around, and here I am in this part of the circle, and I'm thinking, there's no escape out of this one. She gets to the person next to me, does the same thing, so disciplined in that respect, and focuses on his face, and then she's lifting her glance as she moves in front of me. And she's this close. And I'm wondering, oh, what is going to happen now? There's no way out of this. I normally wouldn't go out during the day because people wouldn't know what to make of me. They think he's not dark enough to be an African. What is he, Moroccan, Libyan, Italian? So cars would literally stop and try to figure out. So I wouldn't go out during the day. I'd just go out at night. So I knew when she, this far away, comes right in front of me and eyeballs me, and that's it. So she comes in front of me, and her eyes turn to focus on my face, and I see the light go out of her eyes. Her eyes, she's standing right in front of me like that, and her eyes become stones. And I say to myself, Hare Krishna, she can't see. She's right in front of me. Krishna stole her power of perception. And then I understood. Sarvasya chaham, matasmritya jnanam apohanam cha. Krishna's controlling the perception. It's an unforgettable experience. She's right there. And suddenly the light goes out of her eyes. Her eyes become like dead stones. And then she moves to the next person, and the light in her eyes come back. But she just blanked out. Not that she looked back at me. She just knows. She went around the circle, and then she came and found her son at that end of the circle. She pulled him up by his shoulders, dragged him into the kitchen, and started beating him. You're having political meetings at my house. You're ruining my career. Meanwhile, I just out the door. So later, the devotees met up at another place. And I asked the devotees, what did she say? Didn't she see me? They said, she never saw you. Her conclusion was it's a local gathering of young people who are up to something she doesn't know, and she was angry at her son. But such an exotic sight as you, she never saw, even though she's standing right in front of you. So that taught me very vividly how Krishna is the controller of our perception. But we're so proud, we think that, all right, yeah, I finally accept that my senses are limited, and that's that. No, not only are your senses limited, but there's an active energy, even energetic source, that is blocking your perception. If we want to enter into the world of Krishna Lila, Gaura Lila, we can only do it with Krishna's permission, and that permission comes through devotional service. Another Gaura Lila that emphasizes this point. Another banishment case. This banishment case involved Mukunda Dutt. Again, a very beloved devotee, associate of Lord Caitanya. Again, just like Junior Haridas, a beautiful singer. This is during the Mahaprakash Lila, the great Lila, the Lila of great revelation, manifestation, where for 21 hours Mahaprabhu fulfilled the desires of all the devotees. What do you want? Ask me for a benediction. And Mahaprabhu would show to each devotee that devotee's favorite incarnation. This went on for 21 hours. So one by one, all the devotees were coming up, and they're asking for benedictions. My father is blocking my advancement in bhakti. He's an impediment. Can you please soften his heart? Please raise the Krishna consciousness of my family members. Please help my disciples. Advaita Acharya, of course, prayed that may the most wretched persons have the opportunity to be Krishna conscious. So all this is going on, but then the devotees notice Mukunda hasn't been called up to make his request, nor has he himself come. Obviously, Mukunda feels that unless he's invited, he's not going to enter in on his own accord. Srivas Thakur was the one making this presentation. What's happening, my lord? Mukunda, he's so beloved by us all. Has he offended you? We don't think that's possible. But even if he has offended you, just call him and let him rectify himself. Lord Chaitanya's answer was like a thunderbolt. 1 minute Mukunda is humbly falling at my feet with a piece of straw in his mouth, indicating humility. The next minute, he's taking a stick and he's beating me. So this straw stick, so-called devotee, I don't want to see. So the devotees were astonished. Well, what do you mean he beats you with a stick? And Lord Caitanya said, when he's around the bhaktas, he talks Krishna Katha. And then he goes and associates with the Mayavadis who deride devotional service, who dare think that bhakti is subordinate to karma, to jnana, to yoga. This is what he's doing. I don't want to see him. I refuse to see him. So bear in mind, while this is going on, Mukunda is there, but he's behind some kind of interior curtain. So he's able to hear what's going on. Nevertheless, the devotees, they come and tell him, Mahaprabhu said he doesn't want to see you. Such a dear devotee, yet he doesn't want to see you. So Mukunda said, what's the point in my maintaining my life? What's the use of this body if I can't get the darshan, the association of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu? He's crying. You can just visualize his transcendental dejection, despair. Mahaprabhu doesn't want to see me. In fact, Mahaprabhu said, I never want to see him again. He's some kind of syncretist. He's some kind of, he makes a merge of everything. Bhakti, jnana, karma. This is a Mayavadi position. It's all the same, and devotional service is not exclusive. It's just one of the ways to Brahman. I don't want to see such a person who talks like that. He's beating me with a stick by such association that he's keeping. And he goes back and forth between the Vaishnavas and the impersonalists. So Mukunda is hearing all this. How Mahaprabhu never wants to see him. And Mukunda knows that for those who are actually Mayavadi offenders, it's practically never that they'll get a chance to render devotional service. Never meaning not eternal damnation, but such a long time, it's like never. So he's understanding, this is my fate. Never again will I be able to serve Mahaprabhu and see him. But then he gets an idea. Mahaprabhu doesn't want to see me now and for the foreseeable future, but please, he tells Srivastava devotees, ask him, is there a time in the future, in the far distant future, when I'll get his darshan again? So the devotees went and asked Lord Caitanya. He said, Mukunda is requesting just some timetable, no matter how great, that he'll see you again. And Lord Caitanya said, after 10 million births. So the devotees went back and told Mukunda, Mahaprabhu said you'll get his association again after 10 million births. What was Mukunda's reaction? Haribol! 10 million births, I'll see him again. Oh! And he was dancing in ecstasy like a madman. I have attained. I will attain him after 10 million births. Oh, how wonderful. He's lost in ecstasy, dancing like that. And so the devotees tell Lord Caitanya, who's also aware This is Mukunda's reaction. He's so happy. He's lost in ecstasy. 10 million births. After 10 million births, I'm not condemned eternally for my Mayavad association. What does Lord Chaitanya say? Tell him, come right now. So the devotees go and tell Mukunda, who's lost in ecstasy, 10 million births, I will attain him after 10 million births. So the devotees are, Mukunda, he wants to see you right now, but Mukunda can't hear. He's just in ecstasy. After 10 million births, please. And they keep trying. You can go right now. He wants to see you right now. Finally, they get the message through. And he goes to see Lord Chaitanya, falling at Lord Chaitanya's feet. And Lord Chaitanya tells him, I know that your association with the Mayavadis was an external thing. It's not possible for a fence to touch you. I know that. I was just joking with you when I said after 10 million births. Because of our relationship, I was just joking with you. You can't make any offense. And even if you would do something that looks like an offense, I don't accept it as offense. So then Lord Chaitanya says something very amazing. He says that your pure love manifest as eagerness to see me even by waiting 10 million births. Collapse your punishment into 1 second. So by your will and by your bhakti potency, you overruled my decision. So this shows how bhakti controls even the Supreme Lord. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that the intention of Mahaprabhu was there after 10 million births, but Mukunda's bhakti was so pure and his eagerness was so intense that he was so happy. 10 million births, sure, that's wonderful, I'll attain him again. That eagerness collapsed the 10 million births into 1 moment. In this way, the bhakti of Mukunda overrode the decision of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who voluntarily accepted that Mahaprabhu is conquered by the devotion of the devotee Mukunda. There's more to the Leela. Mukunda will do a wonderful soliloquy about what's the use in even seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead if you have not done devotional service. You won't benefit from what's right in front of your eyes. And he gives the example of Duryodhana. He gives the example of Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu. And he gives the example of those who did benefit by seeing Krishna because they engaged in service. The women of Mathura, when Krishna entered Mathura from Vrindavan. The florist, Kubja. And then he also gives the example of someone who met up with termination because of refusing to serve Krishna, the washerman. Krishna asked, please, give me those clothes you're carrying. Yes, these clothes are for Kamsa. How dare you ask for them? So there's a very interesting technical point about that. Because the washerman had performed austerities, pious activities for millions of births, he had a chance to see Krishna in Mathura. But because he had not rendered devotional service, he couldn't benefit at all from what he's seeing. And in fact, he took a negative attitude, and therefore he was terminated by Krishna. So this is Mukunda's presentation. What's the use in seeing if you don't do devotional service? And the first example he gave was Duryodhana. Krishna went to the assembly of the Kauravas on a peacekeeping mission. He made a presentation. We'll divide the kingdom, half for Duryodhana and company and half for the Pandavas. And Duryodhana refused that. In fact, not only did Duryodhana refuse that, but he's making plans behind the scenes to arrest Krishna. He had his men lurking in the background, and at the signal that Duryodhana would give, they'd all jump Krishna and detain him. This is how mad they were. But Krishna, knowing what they're up to, shows his universal form. In other words, you think I'm alone? You think I'm an ordinary person who came here alone? And Krishna manifests so many living entities going in and out of his body. Still, Duryodhana didn't get the point. Even Dhritarashtra got the point, but he wouldn't do anything to curb his rascal son. Dhritarashtra sensed, or actually he heard from his secretary Sanjay, the universal form. Krishna is showing his universal form. Dhritarashtra couldn't see, he's blind. But he humbly asked Krishna, can you just open my eyes for a few moments so I can see this with the wonder of the universal form? And Krishna allowed him to do that. Again, showing who is the controller of perception. And in spite of seeing all this, Duryodhana didn't change. So this is Mukunda's point. Without devotional service, even if you see Krishna, you don't benefit in the full extent that you should. You can even be killed. And what happened with Duryodhana and company on the battlefield of Kurukshetra? They were all slain, even though Duryodhana had seen the universal form. So Mukunda's point is that you can't get the full impact of happiness without rendering devotional service. Even if you see Krishna, if you don't render service, you don't get the full experience that you're entitled to if you would have rendered devotional service. So these are some points to meditate upon. And of course, we can go deeper into Uddhava visiting Vrindavan and Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu taking up the mood of Srimati Radharani, the emotions of Srimati Radharani, exactly in the state that Uddhava found her when he visited Vrindavan. Actually, I wanted to read you something. Before Uddhava hears the soliloquy of Srimati Radharani, he's being questioned by the gopis in general. They've noted him. You look so much like Krishna. You must be an intimate associate of Krishna. No doubt, Krishna has sent you here to inquire about his parents, Nanda and Yashoda. They don't say, you must have been sent here to inquire about us. And so they're like simple village girls. They've surrounded Uddhava and look at him. He looks just like Krishna. And then they say, please come with us to a solitary place. We want to ask some questions. And then they start talking about what Krishna has done. And it's a very beautiful section of the beautiful Krishna book. I can't memorize it, but I just wanted to read this passage. We know that you are a most confidential associate of Krishna, and that he has therefore sent you to Vrindavan to give solace to his father and mother. We can understand that family affection is very strong. Even great sages who have taken to the renounced order of life cannot give up family affection cent per cent. Sometimes they think of their family members. Krishna has therefore sent you to his father and mother. Otherwise, he has no further business in Vrindavan. He's now in town. What does he have to know about Vrindavan village or the cows' pasturing grounds? These are not at all useful for Krishna because he is now a man of the city. And then they go through a lengthy description of how people use each other, or not only people, but other creatures use something and then discard it. It's very beautiful, and if this was a material affair, you'd be very bitter, be very angry to ever have been utilized in that way. But bear in mind, when the gopis are making these statements, not for the slightest microsecond can they withdraw their hearts from Krishna. Nevertheless, it's such a dramatic presentation. Instead of, he used us, that's the way it is in this world. They speak at the peak of artistry and the peak of love of Krishna. Surely he has nothing to do with persons who do not happen to be his family members. Friendships with those outside the family continue as long as there's some selfish interest in them. Otherwise, why should one bother about those outside the family? Specifically, and here they go, a person attached to the wives of others is interested in them as long as there's a need of sense gratification. Just as bumblebees have interest in flowers, as long as they want to take honey out of them. It is psychologically very natural that a prostitute does not care for her paramour as soon as he loses his money. Similarly, when the citizens find that a government is incapable of giving them full protection, they leave the country. A student, they're pouring it on now, a student after finishing his education gives up his relationship with the teacher and the school. A priest, after taking his reward from the worshiper, gives him up. When the fruit season is over, birds are no longer interested in the tree. Just after eating in the house of a host, the guest gives up his relationship with him. After a forest fire, when there is scarcity of green grass, deer and other animals give up the forest. And so a man, after enjoying his girlfriend, gives up connection with her. In this way, all the gopis indirectly accuse Krishna by citing many examples. Hare Krishna. Any questions? Yes.
Maharaj, you mentioned briefly earlier about Krishna talking to Arjuna and saying, just be the instrument. Victory or the defeat is not your concern. I was just wondering, when we do our service, that sort of sounds like if we don't make, good prasad or reach people with our outreach, we should just accept the results as they are and not strive to actually win.
But what's winning? That's the question. Winning means do your best, and the results are up to Krishna. Krishna didn't tell Arjuna, I'll drive your chariot. Victory, defeat is not your concern. You stay in the back and sleep. No, you do your best as you can. That's bhakti. Just like Jatayu tried to fend off Ravana. He failed from the material point of view, but from the spiritual point of view, he won. Lord Ram performed his funeral ceremony. So this is what makes bhakti very difficult to grasp in some ways for mundane intelligence. As you say, you want to win. You want the scoreboard results to show. But remember, when Prabhupada came to the USA, by his own words, he said, I didn't expect anyone to listen to what I said. When I would tell them the 4 regular principles, they would say, who is this? What is this? That was my reaction when I first saw devotees on television. That's the first time I ever listened to devotees. The David Susskind show, nationwide in the USA. There I was, finishing my last month at university, and my flatmate and I decided to turn on the TV for some relief, and suddenly we saw on the TV the devotees, And they were describing their lifestyle, the rules they followed. What do you think I said? Oh, wonderful, Hare Krishna. No, I said, these people are fools. They talk about Ananda. They kept using the word back then. This is 1971, 72. They kept saying, Ananda. You'll be blissful when you chant Hare Krishna, Ananda. So I learned the word really quick. So I turned to my flatmate and said, they talk about Ananda. We'll invite them to one of our parties. We'll show them what Ananda is. 6 months later, I was in the brahmacharya ashram. We try our best. Victory or defeat is not our concern, but that doesn't mean we reduce the intensity of our effort. This is a little difficult to grasp because we're so fruitive. When I get measurable results, I feel enlivened. Sometimes the measurable results may not be there, but still, our effort has to be there. That's the point. I hope you can grasp it. I hope I explained it properly.
So in the case of Chota Haridas, did he not have the same level of surrender that Mukundadatta did? And that's why the outcome was
Different Lila. Eternal associate. He's always with Mahaprabhu. Junior Haridas. There's variety in pastimes. Anything else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the class. With Srila Prabhupada's dealings with the devotees, His Grace Madhutisa Prabhu,
Yes.
and how other Vaishnavas should deal with devotees. Srila Prabhupada was very disturbed by how the devotees treated Madhutisa Prabhu. So how did Srila Prabhupada want us to deal with these things?
Well, you all know better than I that these days the social media rules for better or worse. It takes discriminating intelligence to maintain bhakti discretion in such cases, in such incidents. One has to be careful. Because even if someone has made a mistake, even a very bad mistake, it's still possible to offend that person. Someone has to be very careful. It requires great maturity, sensitivity, and discretion to deal with someone who has rendered dear service to the Lord and who makes a mistake. All angles have to be considered. And that's a difficult thing to do these days of social media. You see, if you want me to extemporize a bit, ISKCON is a spiritual institution operating in the material world. You understand? And so that means that to some degree, external circumstances will affect ISKCON. Just like what was going on in the 60s and 70s. Counterculture. That affected ISKCON. And then what happened in the 80s and 90s? The immigration laws in the USA, Australia changed. And so many fortunate souls from Bharat came into the country and they changed ISKCON. Similarly, at the turn of the century, 20 years ago or less, social media sprung up, and that's affecting ISKCON. So it's not that everyone in ISKCON's a Paramahansa free from external influence. We're picking up persons of all different levels, and even once they're picked up, they rise or they sink, they go up, they go down. So you have to, I like what Prabhupada said, we're not utopians. We deal with reality. So in answer to your question, dealing with devotees of whatever level, a glorious past, made a mistake, we have to be very careful. I consider all the angles, and all the angles means all the angles. But social media generally means you seize on one aspect and just hammer that point. But you're dealing with devotees, one has to be very careful. That doesn't mean there can't be any justice, there can't be any punishment. No, I said all the aspects. Because you can offend even someone who's made an offense if they have rendered service to Krishna. You have to be very careful. Proceed with caution. You have to proceed, but proceed with caution and care. Anything else? All right. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.